Happy Wealth Wednesday, Anna. So excited to have you here. You have been a long time both founder and also advisor of founders. So I think it's going to be such a great discussion to kind of talk about your journey and where you are now as an investor. So I'd love to kick us off with just where are you calling in from and what are you working on right now?
Thanks, Elena. So happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I am calling in from M13's LA office. I'm a partner at M13, which is a consumer software venture fund focused on Series A investments in the future of consumer behavior.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have this first question. We ask everyone. It's a very equalizing question and it kind of gives us a big throwback to the past. But do you remember what your first ever investment was, whether it was in traditional finance or crypto or maybe something even more non-traditional? What got you started?
Oh, boy, do I remember. So back in 1999 in Web 1.0, it was really popular to get into the friends and family rounds of fast growing tech companies. And so I invested in eToys, which I don't know if any of you even remember eToys. Didn't turn out to be such a great investment, but that was sort of the first dot-com bubble. And we were all convinced that I was working at a Web 1.0 company as well at petstore.com. And so we were essentially all trading shares in each other's companies and thinking, we were all going to the moon at that point.
Wow, that's funny. What did eToys do for those who don't know?
eToys was a very simple model. It was an e-commerce site to sell toys. So it was essentially just the digital version of Toys R Us. There was nothing online that was focused on toys. Amazon wasn't selling toys at that point. At that time, really taking any standard retail and moving it online, was a groundbreaking business model. Of course, today that's just how we do business. But at the time, that was highly revolutionary.
It's so true.
My second investment, I will tell you, or the second time I invested, was actually in Bitcoin, which I bought in 2010. So I bought Bitcoin when it was very low. And the lesson here is that I sold it when it got to $30 because I think I had bought it at about $1 or $2 and I sold it at 30 and I didn't have a lot. So that wasn't as lucrative as it might sound, but I got spooked. I got scared. And I didn't have a community of people that I was talking to about investing. I'd kind of made the decision on my own, on the advice of sort of one friend who knew the market well. And of course, I kick myself frequently for that decision. But it's an important lesson of kind of having patience and holding things for the long term.
Absolutely. It's such a good lesson. And also a reminder of Web 1, like how, it was difficult back then to set up a website, sometimes $500,000. It wasn't like there was Squarespace or Shopify. So It is a really good reminder.
Yeah, I was actually VP product at petstore.com. And I remember so clearly because I was managing a huge team and our budget for relaunching our website was $1 million. Wow. And that was considered cheap in those days. So the barriers to entry there were really huge. And it's a whole different world today. There's not these technical barriers to entry.
I think we're going to see something very similar with Web3. It is complicated right now, but if any trends tell us something, it's that it typically starts that way and eases up over time. So you have a really long history actually of product and founding companies, and you were the managing director of Techstars in LA and now at M13. I would love to hear a bit more of how and why you got into the space of investing.
How I got into investing. I am an accidental investor. So I'll tell you the story. I had sold the company that I had founded and had gone to work for the acquiring company for a while. And I started to realize that I had made some miscalculations as a CEO and I had some real blind spots as a leader. And I became really interested in helping other entrepreneurs to uncover their own blind spots, particularly women founders, so that they could grow with their companies, and continue to scale themselves as leaders. So I was actually studying to be an executive coach. And that was my plan, to be a founder coach. And I was dabbling in angel investing on the side, but I didn't have it in my mind that I wanted to invest as my career. And I got the opportunity to interview to be the managing director of Techstars LA, which was, I thought it was a great place for me to sit and be able to work really closely with founders and do the work I wanted to do. And so the investing part was really just, a side benefit. And then I started doing it and I realized I loved it, because what a way to really be helpful and supportive to founders and have your interests totally aligned. So rather than charging founders for coaching services, which is what the other business would have been, I was able to both give them money and then give them my time and my expertise to help them build their businesses. And that was really compelling for me. And so that was back in 2016 that I signed on with Techstars, and I've been investing ever since.
Wow, I love that. It may be obvious, but what role do you feel like you play in the wealth space, and why is that important?
When I moved to M13, still in an investing role, but we're a bigger fund. So we're a $400 million fund. We have about 900 million under management. So we're managing quite a lot of capital. And so I have the opportunity to deploy capital into businesses I think are going to, improve the world. And I invest in not necessarily intentionally or as a plan, but if you look at the companies I've invested in a lot of companies founded by women that serve women, right? Mm-hmm. So it's an opportunity for me both to back amazing female teams and also to invest in things that make the world better for women. And so as a venture capital fund, we're obviously, our purpose of being is to generate a return for our limited partners. But I believe that we can do that, and we can do well by doing good, and that we can invest in companies that, are improving the way we live, the way we work, the life of our planet, and also improving the economic condition of women. And so, I see it as a real honor to be able to play that role of deploying capital in that way.
As you've been evaluating and looking at the whole landscape of companies and teams and seeing what's working, what's not, what do you think has been the most exciting thing that you've learned that you would want others to know?
I think that the thing that I've learned that has helped me propel me forward is the value of the word yet. So, you hear people say things like, oh, well, that's not something I know about, or I can't do that, or, I've never tried that. And any of those phrases, you just add the word yet, and a whole new world of possibility comes up. So, if you look at my career, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I always get the question, how could you go from being a corporate lawyer to a founder of a company? How did you go from being a talent manager to being a VC? And it's all about the value of that word yet. So at any, transition point in my life, I was looking, at doing something that I didn't have any skill or experience in. And I built a skill of learning. I built a skill of being able to ask great questions and have a curious mind and kind of get up the learning curve. And so that applies to investing. That applies to, developing mastery in any area. And so it's just something I try to impart, to other people that I work with, and also, frankly, to my kids. It's like, don't have that fixed mindset, because think about yourself as a teenager. You didn't know how to do anything, right? All the skills you acquired as an adult, were things, that you had yet to do. So just the power of the future possibility.
I really love that, especially because the world and technology is changing so rapidly that it's almost impossible now to have that fixed mindset. You have to have the learner's mindset, or it's going to be really tough.
So we're all beginners, right? And if I decided, okay, I'm not going to be able to learn this Web3 thing, because I've learned everything I can learn, or, I've been around for too long or whatever, I'm closing myself off to what is the next interesting technology revolution going to bring us? And I don't want to close myself off. I'm excited to see what the future holds and to be part of that.
So what is exciting you right now as somebody who's been a trailblazer and learning a lot of new things? What is exciting you right now? Is it a person, a company, an idea?
I've got a few things and people I'm excited about. I am personally fascinated right now with thinking about the future of work and the future of income, and thinking about ways for people to earn an income and build a life, build a financially productive life outside of the construct of a job. So that might mean new models for work, freelancer work communities, labor marketplaces, and also things and opportunities around investing and around monetizing your influence as opposed to your time. So, some people who I think are doing really interesting work are Beatrice Acevedo, who founded Suma Wealth, which is a fintech education platform for the Latino community in the US, massive community in the US, where she has a voice and an ability to really speak to that audience because she had previously built a media company. And she's just tapping into an audience that has a huge hunger for financial education, and she's delivering it to them in a way that's, really speaks specifically to that audience. So I love the work that she's doing. I think there's people like Beck Jones and Clutch Wallet who are really thinking about Web3 and how do we onboard women into Web3. I love the work my BFF is doing in that area, and We3 and Meta Angels. So I think there's some really interesting, and what you're doing with Eve Wealth, honestly. I'm very excited about the idea of financial empowerment for women and some of the brands that are emerging around both Web3 generally and investing specifically, that are focused on women and financial empowerment.
Why do you think that's because? Okay, I think I'm back.
You froze for a minute. I don't know. Is it you or me who's freezing?
It was me. I can see because it says your connection is unstable.
Yeah, so I just missed that last question.
No problem. So it'll just be a pause blip, and then we'll restart the video. But and just the last question is, what advice would you give to somebody getting started, whether it's, writing your first angel check or even embarking on a world or career as a investor? What would you give advice as?
I would say, one, start small. Diversification is your friend. Invest in community. There's lots of amazing communities, such as this one, where you can get financial education and educate yourself. And then decide on the way in when you're going to take it out, right? When you're going to sell. Because if you don't have a plan, it's hard when things start to go south not to just want to take your money out. And that is the worst time to do it. So I think it's important to have some discipline going in about what your time span for investing is. But I think diversification is the most important thing, making individual angel bets and putting all your money in one company isn't a great investing strategy. It's honestly more like gambling than it is like investing. And so you need to, whatever way you can, build a diversified portfolio.
I love that. It's great advice, and really full circle as you think about even the first Bitcoin investment you were thinking about. If you had the forecasting or the discipline of why you were doing it and how long you wanted to hold, maybe it would have planned out differently, but those are the opportunities to learn and to grow.
That's right. That's right.
And how can we stay in touch with you and M13? What is the best way to follow along with yourself and also the kinds of companies that you're investing in?
Absolutely. So I am on Twitter at Anna W. Barber. That's where I tend to spend time when I'm on social media. I'm also on LinkedIn, and our website is m13.co. So I'd look forward to connecting with you on Twitter.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today, for doing what you do and investing in really amazing founders, including a whole group of women who are building the space. So very grateful for you, and we'll absolutely be staying in touch.
Thanks so much for having me.